What if a zombie apocalypse really happened? Zombies, a staple of horror movies and video games. But what if they weren't just fiction? What if a zombie apocalypse really happened? How would it start? How would we survive? And what would the world look like? Today, we're diving into the terrifying possibilities of a real-life zombie apocalypse. Survival became the only priority. With the world collapsing around them, humans were forced to adapt quickly. The basics, food, water, shelter, became scarce commodities. Those who survived were the ones who learned to scavenge, to fight, and to trust only those closest to them. In a hypothetical zombie apocalypse, the number of deaths and the emptiness of cities would be staggering. While it's impossible to predict exact numbers, we can estimate based on various factors like the speed of the outbreak, the effectiveness of the response, and population density. First, let's talk about how a zombie apocalypse could start. It could begin with a virus, perhaps an experimental one meant to cure diseases or enhance human abilities. But what if that virus mutates, either through a lab accident or a deliberate bioweapon attack, turning its hosts into mindless, aggressive creatures? The infection could spread rapidly, especially in densely populated areas. From the first outbreak, chaos would follow. Hospitals overwhelmed, governments struggling to respond, and the public in a state of panic. The spread of the infection. Once the virus spreads to a major city, the infection would go global in no time. People traveling by plane, train, and car would unknowingly carry the virus across borders. Within days, the infection could be everywhere. The streets would be filled with zombies, and the living would be fighting to survive. In the first few weeks, billions could be infected and turned into zombies, especially in densely populated urban areas. With an infection rate potentially as high as 90% in some areas, entire cities could fall in days. In such a scenario, the key to survival would be isolation, getting as far away from densely populated areas as possible. Depending on the infection's lethality and spread, the death toll could be in the billions. If 70–80% of the world's population were either infected or killed, this could result in 5–6 billion deaths, leaving only a few 100 million survivors worldwide. Empty cities, urban areas. Major cities would be among the first to fall due to high population density and fast infection spread. Cities like New York, Tokyo, or London could become almost entirely deserted, with only zombies and a handful of survivors hiding in isolated pockets. Ghost cities, once thriving metropolises, could turn into ghost towns within weeks or months. Without human activity, infrastructure would start to decay rapidly. Streets would be empty, buildings abandoned, and nature might begin to reclaim urban spaces. The atmosphere would be charged with fear and anxiety. The constant threat of zombie attacks would make everyday life perilous. Survivors would be on high alert, their senses constantly tuned to the sounds of approaching danger. Moans, footsteps, or breaking glass. Cities and neighborhoods that were once bustling with life would fall eerily silent. The absence of human activity, combined with the decay of infrastructure, would create a haunting stillness, broken only by the occasional groan of zombies or distant sounds of conflict. The smell of decay would permeate the air as bodies, both human and zombie, decompose. Buildings would start to crumble without maintenance, and the once vibrant urban environment would quickly fall into disrepair, covered in overgrown vegetation and littered with debris. Pollution from fires, explosions, and decaying infrastructure could darken the skies with smoke and ash. Streetlights, if they still worked, would flicker ominously at night, casting long shadows and adding to the overall sense of dread. Without human maintenance, nature would begin to reclaim urban environments. Weeds and vines would grow unchecked, breaking through concrete and overtaking buildings. Wildlife might return to the streets, further altering the environment. Human survival tactics. Surviving a zombie apocalypse would require quick thinking and adaptability. The first step, find a safe location. Urban areas would be the most dangerous, so heading to rural or remote locations would be crucial. But survival isn't just about finding a safe place. It's about securing food, water, and shelter. Stockpiling non-perishable foods, purifying water, and growing your own food would be essential for long-term survival. Communities that can band together and defend themselves would have the best chance of making it through. In many areas, neighborhoods would be overrun by zombies, with the undead wandering aimlessly in search of prey. These zones would be extremely dangerous, and any movement would have to be cautious and stealthy to avoid attracting attention. The safest places to be. So where would be the safest places during a zombie apocalypse? Remote areas far from major cities like mountainous regions or isolated islands would be ideal. Underground bunkers, if well stocked, could also provide long-term safety. These places offer not only isolation from the infected, but also the potential for self-sufficiency. But remember, no place is entirely safe. Defense is key. Global reactions and cooperation. In the face of a global crisis, how would the world's nations react? Initially, there might be efforts to contain the infection and help those affected. But as the situation worsens, countries might close their borders, focusing on their own survival. International aid might be limited, and alliances could break down as resources become scarce. Some nations might form alliances, but trust would be hard to come by in a world overrun by zombies. The willingness to help others could diminish as the threat grows. Despite the chaos, humanity would strive to find solutions. Scientists would work tirelessly to develop a cure or vaccine, though progress might be slow. In the meantime, survivors would need to adapt to a new way of life, growing their own food, purifying water, and creating sustainable communities. Bartering systems could replace currency, and new societies would form around principles of cooperation and resourcefulness. The key to survival would be not just individual strength, but collective effort. If humanity survives the initial outbreak, what would the future look like? It would take time, but society could begin to rebuild. Communities that manage to thrive could become the foundations of a new world, one where survival skills, cooperation, and resilience are more important than ever. The zombie apocalypse may be a terrifying scenario, but it also reminds us of the importance of preparation, community, and hope. Even in the darkest of times, humanity has the potential to rebuild and thrive.